Welcome to Talk Tennis.
Thank you.
We're excited today to have Yazir from Grapplesnake.
Thank you.
And then I have my crew, Troy and Oak, are joining me. I am going to have to admit, this is the first time I am going into a podcast more blind than ever.
Nice. Good. Good.
Which is why I have solid backup with me. I like to really know product well, but I don't know your product very well at all.
You haven't had a chance to play test it yet?
I have,
Too many strings.
There's a lot of play testing going on, and I just was on a trip, and I've got some other stuff going on that I am shocked that I have not hit it, and I'm a little embarrassed.
Oh, don't worry about it. And I'm actually looking forward to hear how you like it.
Your feedback.
But this is also perfect because there's a lot of people I feel like who don't know about Grapplesnake strings. So how would you talk about these to somebody who doesn't know where to start potentially?
Yeah.
Is looking for something new to try based on what they like.
That's our story. I've been trying to get the word out, and what's been interesting is that whoever gets to play with them, it ends up being kind of remarkable for them. Like they don't just forget about it.
Okay, I'm gonna go play now. It's remarkable.
I remember shipping out orders to San Luis Obispo tennis facility before we even met anyone here, because that probably meant that some people here were already playing with my students.
It was probably people working in this building.
But yeah, I think you're going to like them, and they're not meant to be the same old strings that are out there already. So I think it takes a little bit of education, maybe a little bit of research to see what fits you best.
Okay.
And then go from there.
Nice.
Nothing beats testing.
But we do have our 3 intro that we're bringing in from Grapplesnake. We've got Tour Sniper, Tour Mate, and then Alpha. So you've got a little bit of a stiffer option with the Sniper. You got your softest option with the Alpha, and then something kind of in the middle with the M8. I love that all of these strings have a very unique identity. I think that's one of the strongest testaments to what you guys do, is having a clear and committed design theory and seeing that out to the fullest. And yeah, I think Alpha, not only does it shine in denser patterns, for people who are very, well versed in their polyester journeys, but at the same time, it's a great starter polyester. Very soft, very spin friendly, and I would love to hear more about the vision behind that.
Behind Alpha. Alpha it was born maybe about 5 years ago alongside Tour Sniper. They were developed at the same time, but they're completely different. Alpha ends up being used quite a lot in people that fit the majority of tennis players, like the 4-0, transitioning from maybe a full bed of multi-filament, trying to add poly in the cross, trying to add poly in the mains, maybe a full bed of Alpha, and it doesn't feel that much different from what they were already used to. And one thing that happens quite a lot in out there is that people just end up buying and testing and going for the string that's the most high performance. And I'm not saying Alpha is not high performance. That every string we make in our minds, they are made with the intent of winning professional tournaments. But Alpha is one of the easiest ones to use, and it's such an easy transition between coming from anything with multi-filament or natural gut in any way into adding poly to the equation, and it's just comfortable, but it's not a noodle. It's relatively easy to make a soft string. It's not that complicated. What's complicated is making it perform and giving you that relatively direct line of communication with the ball in a string that is soft. And so it's soft, yet it has a nice crisp feel to it upon impact. So that's what's cool about it.
Nice. Why don't you walk us through the other 2 models
Sure.
as well, and then we can...
So the Tour Sniper, very successul string. It has aluminum. It's an aluminum-based string.
It's looking a little familiar.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
something
So
else popular on tour.
I would say that it is the only string we've ever made that was based on an existing approach, and that the addition of aluminum has been a breakthrough in the industry. But it happened 2 decades ago. Therefore, when we were just creating different ideas. And by the way, everything we make is just trying to be different, right? But with Tour Sniper, we also had this desire of fixing a problem. And the problem was that we all grew up playing with, vintage polyesters before they were even co-polys, right? I was just telling Oak when we were talking out there that I'm from the generation that, I grew up with like a Prince oversized 107 Michael Chang long body with multi-filament, and then everything changed, like 1997, Gustavo Kuerten winning the French, and I was one of those people playing with Prestige 1820-95 with Luxilon original at 60 pounds, and
Good times.
it was a lot of positives with that, but also a lot of people getting injured and whatnot. But then shortly after, like aluminum was introduced, and it brought a whole new level of precision, but it didn't have it did have its downsides. And in light of us trying to solve problems and create new things, first let's solve this problem, and we try to make this aluminum based approach into something comfortable that's playable for a long time and that holds tension, and maybe we can give it some soft edges so it more people can enjoy a little bit more bite. But
Wait,
not
soft edges?
Soft edges. It's pentagonal.
Okay. Oh, so that refers to the actual profile.
Yeah,
of
that's
string
the
set.
geometry
Gotcha.
of Tour Sniper. It's pentagonal, but if you touch it, it's not that sharp. Because again, both the Tour Sniper and the Tour M8, they're both part of the same like lineage of strings that are precision, control, low powered. So we wanted to enhance the precision as much as possible by keeping the edges soft, maintaining launch consistency the best we could, and number one, fix the biggest problem, which was tension maintenance with that formula. And for that, we decided to put some additives like co-polyester strings. The co part of co-poly is hugely important these days. That's where the ideas and the magic and the recipes that we have been able to create, they come from. It's the co portion of it. And some of the additives, plus the fact that we have partially pre-stretched the Tour Sniper, allow the string to have a much more linear and less steep lifespan. And that's just something that me personally, I was slightly annoyed with that formula. And in addition to that, they are pretty firm. Aluminum-based strings, they are pretty firm, depending on how much aluminum you use, like 5.7% powder or less or more. It makes a huge difference. And that's where the novel additives that we created also come into play. And we introduced those to Tour Sniper and then we made it one of, if not the softest aluminum-based poly out there. And it's low-powered. It's relatively soft, definitely soft for a aluminum-based string, and it is shaped, even though it's like mildly shaped. So that was a triple approach at trying to fix that problem, and it was for a long time our biggest seller. So, but again, it's the only string that we have made based on an existing approach, and then everything before then and ever since has been. I'm not trying to emulate anything out there. So,
Yeah.
I've hit this one a few times, and I noticed that like it's got, it shares a little bit of characteristic with like an alu power because of the aluminum, but it didn't feel like overly like really firm, on the arm.
Right.
Other strings that the color make the comparison to like a Tor Bite or like Turna has one, the Silver 7 Tor.
Yeah.
For being like a Tor level control string, it did have like a softer feel. Right away, I noticed that.
There are multiple attempts at this. We can, Kirschbaum Max Power, Topspin, Cyber Flash. Yeah. I think some of the Robin Soderling strings, one of them had it.
Leon or something like
that. The utilization of aluminum is definitely a valid and very, very impactful and effective way of improving a string, but nothing comes without its drawbacks, and you need to be able to tame them, mitigate them, and come up with ideas on how to use this additive in a way that doesn't create a lot of downsides at the same time.
Also, the partial pre-stretch or the pre-stretch you do. I noticed right away this one. Making another comparison to because I've hit it quite a bit, Tor Bite. Like it's got that crisper feel, but then there's definitely that like settling in period where it's like it's firm and crisp off the stringer, and then like a couple hours later you feel it. Well, this one just felt like settled in and broken in like right away, boom.
Very linear,
like control wise.
And one of the other things that's slightly annoy me is that I don't like when the string is a different string in every hitting session. You know, you want to be able to rely on it. I don't like having to have 6 rackets and only one of them is at a optimal point of use for an open level final. You know, I would prefer if we can have the string have a wider sweet spot time frame.
Well, and ironically, I think obviously we deal with a lot of tennis fanatics who know about pre-stretching, but I think there's a lot of good high-level players that don't know what a pre-stretch is or what it does.
In general terms, I would not really recommend pre-stretching polyester strings at home. The stringer, I mean, if you punch in some numbers and allow the electronic tension head to pre-stretch at 10%, like you're going to probably ruin the string. And this is a very, very precise utilization of pre-stretching in a not as part of as what a stringing machine can do. It's a little different. It's part of the manufacturing process.
Yeah.
And I would recommend to not pre-stretch anything that we make after the fact, after what we have done, because you're
Just
going
stretch
to
it out.
I mean, I know that some people like it. That's fine, but it's undoubtedly you're going to reduce the lifespan of the string, and it's going to feel the same for the longer time, but it's going to feel dead for the longer time. So
definitely not a smart idea for comfort.
So you want a little bit of that elasticity to be maximized in how long it lasts for, because otherwise, then even though the string is still straight and it's not dead because of impact and racket head speed, it's dead because of the pre-stretch. Then you start going into this realm of a lot of vibrations going into your arm, and I don't know. For us. We make them in a way that they're ready to go, and I don't think I would recommend that.
Okay, tell me about M8, because the color to me is just like awesome, especially in this purse set. So I'm instantly drawn to this, even though I'm guessing Tour Sniper is going to be more my vibe. But tell me about M8.
Right. So just for a second, back to Alpha. Alpha is part of a line of strings that are comfort and power oriented.
Okay.
It's not the only one. There's one more called Tour Mako. Very comfortable, very good. Both Tour Sniper and the Tour M8 are part of a line of strings that are control and precision. And Tour M8 was born after the Tour Sniper. And the complete approach of everything was made from scratch. You know, this was totally new in every regard. Even the color. I don't think there's any other string with that color. I like green.
I like that color.
In general, I like forest green, mantis green, olive green. And this is it was almost a coincidence. I didn't know what at the time, V8 version of the blade was going to look like. But I know that a lot of manufacturers were almost making the strings to fit how they look with the V7 blade or the 2015 blade. And the neon green, and I didn't know what the V8 blade was going to look like, and we were not even considering making a string that should look good with a racket, but it looks so good with that racket. And I have that racket, and I have not only the V8 blade, but I have a lot of H22 Pro Stock frames in the V8 blade paint scheme.
Oh, now he's
like
flexing.
H22, H19s, most of them I have them in the countervail. That would be the V6 generation paint job, but that's a different thing. And the Tour M8 more solid. And by solid, I mean stability. I mean like the way the string behaves upon hard impact. Say like you're returning a serve. You're returning a first serve with a half swing, and that's when you feel it. And that's arguably maybe 90% of players. That's not a huge deal because they play at the 4.0 level or 4.5 maybe 3.5. But when you really need it, this string has the incredible stability. So we even surpassed what the aluminum could do in the Tour Sniper without metals.
Okay.
And that makes the string less firm, but it also has a strong foundation of stability. So that means that it has some firmness to it. It's not a noodle, not at all. But at the same time, the additives to it create a little bit of a cushion on top of that, which makes the string feel quite comfortable, and it's low powered. So you probably want to string it at the lower end of what you feel is appropriate for polyesters for you. Everyone's different. Like answering the question of what should I string my E-zone at, which is I probably get that question quite
Troy's
a lot.
a specialist at answering that one.
It's hard, right? Like it depends on environmental factors, like your elevation over sea, you're playing level, you're playing style. your frame, like you're playing with a tweener, like open head, 100 square inch plus, or are you playing with a 95, 18, 20? You know, maybe there's a 5 pounds of difference between, and also like personal preference. That's the other. It always comes down to personal preference at the end. But for the M8, in general, I'd recommend just using the lower end of what you consider normal for you in polyester strings.
Awesome.
It's has a very linear lifespan. It doesn't feel like it's dead, and then it breaks. And so that's a good thing. I couldn't
It's very
ask for
string
more.
time.
It takes a little bit of time. It's set up for the long haul, and it takes a little bit of time, maybe one hitting session, to develop its pocketing. Because at first it's not going to have it, and you're going to feel like, oh, this is too low powered. But maybe after one hitting session, it's going to pocket really nicely. It's relatively slippery, so the snapback is good. And then with that pocketing, you get that comfort. You can lower the tension. It's low powered, so you can lower the tension a little bit. And then you can hit some bombs. And it's very stable. It's very stable. I feel that this is like our first success at making a string that didn't require a lot of break-in, even though it does, but not for too long. And more importantly than that, it didn't go through like this nasty period of being dead for too long of its lifespan. Some strings, they play great for 20% of their life, and then the next is not that good. This is probably, you're going to feel that it's slinging or spraying a little bit just a few minutes before it breaks. Maybe you're not even going to notice
That's
that. So
interesting.
it's really interesting. It's our biggest seller right now, and maybe it's great news. At 3 o'clock in the morning today, Julian Cash playing with Tour Mate, just along with his partner, doubles partner at Wimbledon.
Nice.
They won the quarterfinals. They're going to be playing semifinals at Wimbledon with our
Heck
string.
yeah,
And
that's awesome.
that's slightly surreal for us because we're not a huge corporation. We're just a couple guys and with some good ideas. And it's a good combination because the owner in Germany, his name Farid, and he's the brains behind all this. He's the person that's responsible for the chemistry, and I think that's our the biggest competitive advantage. Like the chemistry behind our co-Polies is in fact really good, and that what he provides is what makes us a little different. And then the approach that the rest of us have been able to bring into the table is that we just simply don't want anything to be the same as what's out there. You know, everything starts with change. Every single string starts with the approach of what do we need to change. So, yeah.
Well,
great
that's
string.
perfect because my question is always, how did this come to be? So maybe you can give us a little bit more background on Grapplesnake, when it became Grapplesnake, how it became Grapplesnake, where the name came from. All the things.
Yeah. So, born in Germany, still
Love that.
a German
I was just in
string
Germany.
manufacturer. So that means a lot. Like we use top quality supplies and consumables. We buy oil in Germany. We have to pay for like German labor laws. Like this is a whole different dimension from other strings that are made somewhere else. It's not easy. It's not cheap, and the approach has always been about quality. And quality number 1, number 2, and number 3 priority. And nothing else really matters. And we just wanted to bring the best strings out there and price them at a price point that's approachable and okay for people. But it's not like that tier of strings sub $10 that are just really just normal. This is not that normal. The strings were born in the mid to late 2010s.
Okay.
And I came in 2018. The initial idea was to make something different, of course, but it was very specific. We wanted a dual poly hybrid that was going to perform better than what the normal full bed approach was out there. And the idea was to have a setup with a relatively firm main, very sharp, stiff, low powered, with a nice and soft cross. And that allowed you to lower the tension in the mains upwards to 6 pounds and create the pocketing, enhance the spin. But at that point, you're still lacking feel. and then you introduce the crosses as a nice, soft, powerful cross. And that cross should be strung at your nominal tension of maybe, say, 55 pounds, where the mains would be 49 pounds, for example, for any given player. And that was actually really good. We had an original hybrid setup that we now replaced with another one. It's called the Neon Hybrid. And to me, that's still like one of our best strings. And we're never going to stop making that one. And if you're a 5.0 plus open level professional player, that you should probably try that one because it has the most stability, like even more than TourMate. It's an outstanding.
Is the Neon Hybrid is what it's called now?
Yeah, it's the Neon
Was there a
Hybrid.
name before it prior to that?
So it has a longer name. We call it the Neon Hybrid, but the string in the mains is called CES Neon Dust. CES comes from another string called
I remember the
Cube
packaging.
Extra Sharp.
I remember the packaging. I remember seeing it a while back because Julie played with it.
Oh, okay.
And her old Prince Beast racket. I remember that because like super sharp. I remember.
So one of our strings is called, one of our
Liquid Dust?
OG strings was called Cube.
Okay.
And
or
then
something
Cube
like
had a firmer version called Cube Extra Sharp. So that is CES, Cube Extra Sharp.
okay.
So the current hybrid has Cube Extra Sharp Neon. So CES Neon plus the Liquid Neon. And Liquid was at the time
Liquid, yeah.
our softest string.
Okay.
We have since discontinued Liquid because Alpha and Tourmako, they're just so much better. But Liquid Neon Dust is still part of that hybrid, and it's a fantastic setup. Again, we're never gonna stop making that one.
Yeah. It's a sharp one to me.
I forgot his name. European player, Austrian. He beat Djokovic once. He was playing with a CES Neon Dust. He wore like the Oakley glasses. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he was one of the original players that played with that setup. It's all right. We'll remember. But yeah, that was like our first approach at making tennis strings. And then before that, Grapplesnake, to answer your question of the name, was Farid. He started the company and he wanted to make like gym equipment. He's a huge like competitive like he lifts. And he you guys know battle ropes. So it looks like a snake. He called it Grapplesnake. He was at the time experimenting with plastics, polyesters, rubbers, and that's like where the know-how came from. And then we introduced like the chemistry background, engineering, and all that into now like let's do tennis. And we're all like tennis players, enthusiasts, and we've been playing our whole life. So I think we brought a lot of our experiences and frustrations with the strings when we were growing up. My injury at the age of 19 playing at 60 pounds in my iPrestige PT57E, like that played a part in the development of some of this stuff. So it's a lifelong story. And I know that, I mean, we're not like old school, but we all that stuff builds up and it helps in creating the ideas that we have right now.
And is the factory in Germany?
Correct.
Then, like, just to give like you guys and our listeners a heads up, everything in Germany, you need a license to do everything. So
I would say it's nothing short of a miracle that we can sell these strings at this price point.
Yeah.
And that leads to the next point that
to play golf, you need to take classes and get a license to recreationally play golf in Germany.
Your golfing license.
So that just kind of gives you like an idea of like how
and you know what
disciplined this string is.
And let me add to that because we're tennis enthusiasts first and business people second.
Yeah.
Like it's not about maximizing any profits or anything. It's about making the best string we can and have fun with it and maybe make a living out of it, but change and disrupt the industry. And it's the business talk, and I know setting up our taxes and all that's like the boring part. I hate that. I like this.
Yeah.
So, and it's still a small team. So we're still, and here's an added value that I think we have, that even at this point, because we have been growing a lot, even at this point, people can still just call me and people can just write me an email. I'll probably answer in an hour. And when I was growing up, I never had the opportunity. It was unthinkable for me to just say, call Yonek or whoever, and say, hey, can I talk to the lead engineer? And can I ask what should I string in the EZO 98? It was never a possibility. And like huge respect for those huge corporations, but they're incapable of that. And we are capable. And I think that the forum, the Talk Tennis forum, I think is a good example. We started a small thread just saying, hey, we exist. And now how many views? We have 350,000 views,
Yeah.
4,000 comments, most of them reviews, 99% positive. Like the conversation has stayed positive for 6 years. Like in this day and age where there's so much negativity out there, I think
Right.
and that's not just thanks to me, it's just all the participants there. We created this little community and family there where people come in and ask a question and people gladly answer instead of saying, hey, use the search box. No, just answer. And people are positive about it. And sometimes people ask something and before I get to see it, someone else just wrote a full essay as a response. And
That sounds
and I'm
about right.
hugely proud of that. Like that was born from nothing.
Which is a great segue. We have a couple generated questions
Sure.
for you from Talk Tennis.
Nice.
That was perfect.
Yeah, there's I'll just go through them and say whatever you need to say. Are there plans for additional colorways to exist with existing silhouettes?
Oh yeah. So we have to pick our battles. You know, we're still a small team, and there's always a little bit of a juggling of what are we using our tooling equipment, because we have to set up the machinery, the tooling for a string, for a batch. And then we, just so people understand, that we bring them to United States. They call it KT. Some of those reels they call like KT 250, and they're like the size of that table, you know. And from there we cut them into reels and sets. But once we start a batch, we can just say we need to retool everything for another, and we have limited machines. It's not like we have one machine per model and submodel and variation of the string. So we have to pick our battles. That's why some of the original models have been discontinued. There's only 24 hours in a day. And we need to make a lot of strings these days.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we do. We are. It would only be natural for us to look at our models that people like the most, and create more options, more colorways. Maybe a Tennis Warehouse color for TourMate. I don't know. But also, people have been asking at times for thinner gauges. Thinner gauges,
That might be one of the
it would be relatively simple just to make a thinner gauge, but that's not what we're going to do. We need to make the string play to a very high standard. So we might have to make some modifications to the chemistry. It wouldn't just be a matter of making it thinner, because I don't want TourMate to just break a little too early. It has such a strong reputation for being so durable and consistent in its lifespan and solid. And all three of those aspects are going to suffer if we make it in 1.10 just by making it
Right.
in 1.10. And
What's the thinness you go on these two already?
we have both the Tour Sniper and the TourMate in 1.25 and 1.30.
Okay.
Yeah. So not a huge difference, but it actually makes a decent difference.
And you change the chemistry, I assume.
Between the 1.25 and 1.30, there's not a whole lot of
Okay.
change. But once you start diving into 1.10, 1.15, you need to protect the strengths of the strings.
Right.
And then you need to get into the whiteboard and make some changes and not change the string,
Right.
but maintain the qualities of the string, because I also don't want it to feel different, right? So it's a more complicated endeavor than it might sound like. But at the same time, yes, I know that there's a market for it. There's a niche. People like it. It's not the majority. It's definitely just niche. But I don't want to forget about those players.
Okay. You already answered one. Someone was asking about different gauges, so that's great. This one is a very specific question. It says, I'm stringing right now mainly for Club 4.0 USTA men's teams and also our high school team. Where do I start fitting in the Grapplesnake into this framework? Most of them like playing with Polies almost exclusively. 2 with a Poly multi-hybrid. The Polies they're using are typically Babolat Hurricane, RPM Blast, so I'd like to know if there's something similar in the Grapplesnake line or something transitional that might be better for them.
Yeah, that's a great one, because at the junior level, let's just go over the junior part that he mentioned. I think it's we need to be very, very aware that we need to protect, these players' bodies and arms and elbows and all that. So I hardly ever recommend a full bed of poly in general, or at least this was the case 10 years ago, to juniors. They're still developing their technique, and every single impact that's off center takes a toll. And after 100,000 times, you have to be careful with that, especially when they're developing and growing. Now, this is one of the paradigms we're trying to change. Like the polyester string doesn't have to be unforgiving like that. It doesn't have to be that way. And I grew up with a wrist injury because of 60 pounds in, I keep saying that, I'm traumatized. And so even 10 years ago, that was still a problem. You jumped in on a full bed of poly that was hugely successful, but probably not the right one for you at that moment. And
Or the right
you're like,
tension.
okay, it plays great,
Or the right
but
racket.
I'm sacrificing a lot. Like it hurts a little bit, like my wrist, I have to take a break. Like so careful with full bed, but these days we're really trying to break those barriers. And
Yeah.
a string like Alpha, like I don't like looking at the past too much. It has led to who we are right now, but I'm looking at 10 years from now, and in 10 years from now, all these questions are going to be obsolete. In 10 years from now, the polyester string is going to be so advanced because of the part of co-poly that you are going to be able to win the US Open with a string like Alpha that's nice and soft, which is also going to be suitable for a 13-year-old junior. And that's impossible right now, but it will be possible in the future. And maybe they're not even going to be called polyester strings anymore. They're going to be a whole new class. And we do have one model that's an entryway into that. It's called Paradox Pro. But I can talk about that in a moment. But to further answer the question, Alpha is a great one to transition from full multi, maybe introducing it into the mains a couple pounds lower than the cross. If you're sticking with multi-filament in the cross, like there's so many good multi-filaments out there. I'm a huge fan of one that's called Tolson T8, made in Japan. Not that easy to find in the United States, but you can find it. And it's a great value string, but really like one of my top multis.
M8 and T8 together.
Yeah, we do that a lot, in fact, M8 and
Yeah.
T8. But Alpha, for that person, Alpha and T8. Then Alpha, in that line of strings, Alpha was, hopefully we'll be able to carry it at Tennis Warehouse. So this is just an introduction to us at Tennis Warehouse, but maybe in the future, like the other string along with Alpha in that line of strings that are like power and comfort, it's called Tour Mako, and it feels great too. So both Tour Mako, and both Alpha are great options for starting to switch maybe the cross or the mains into polyester. I would recommend the mains because Alpha, even though they're soft edges, it still has edges. And once you put a shaped string in the cross with maybe your multi-mains, you're going to affect the durability of the multis, because the multis are going to last less than the poly in the first place. And if you put them in the mains, they're going to last even less compared to putting them in the crosses, which sustain maybe like 30% of the abuse, maybe 70% in the mains. And if you put a shaped poly in the cross, then it's even more abuse on those mains. So I would recommend Alpha in the mains with a good multi, or maybe like a good synthetic gut in the crosses, but you don't want the whole string job to be reduced in lifespan by just adding a very short-lived synth gut. So you probably want to have a good multi, not the most expensive because it's just in the cross, and go from there. And then transition that player into perhaps a full bed of Alpha or Tour Mako. It has a good energy return. That means it's very powerful. So it's not going to feel like they don't have any depth at that age. They're going to have the depth, but just don't string it that tight. That's my only advice. It's good. What was it? Anything else there?
Yeah, he also strings for club players with RPM and Hurricane. What would you suggest as a transition?
Yeah, I mean, good strings. Those are good strings. I played with Hurricane part of my college time, I think, after I was moving from the Luxilon's originals. I had the pink one, or like maroon, or it was. I'm talking about this old school.
I remember like
That one's over my head.
Yeah.
The burgundy
wasn't
one.
born
yeah.
yet.
Battlelet Hurricane was popular at the time.
I've heard, just real quick, not to cut you off, but the 8 sides, RPM Blast, also 8 sides.
Yeah.
But some people were comparing it like in the reviews.
It's
just the fact that like they have some similarities in shape.
Sure.
But this one just way more consistent over time and comfortable for that fact. But
They're wildly different strings.
Yeah.
The shape might be the one thing that they're the same in, but Battlelet RPM has been around for a long time. Very popular string. We don't use waxes. We don't use coatings. Like one of the things that we were trying to focus on is just not have a a layer of the string that will wear off and change everything. And so, I mean, and I'm not just pointing at, a lot of strings have that. It's a valid approach, but I think we are at a time where we can do it differently and run it into the string's own composition. We don't have to add a layer of something if it can be in it, you know. And at the same time, the additives that we created, that's a whole world of discussion. Like the additives can be conducive to play better, or could be conducive to just feel better. And some of the ones that are conducive to just feel better, they definitely certainly don't make it play better. So that's another balance you need to reach in which additive can enhance the snapback capabilities without hurting the string. And by the way, is snapback the number one goal?
There was a question about
it's
that.
probably like a top 5 goal, but not near one, I think. And it's just
takes
one
a certain level of player to actually get those strings to move and
Yeah.
snap back. I mean, if we're talking about Rafa or
Sure,
Alcaraz
yeah.
or something.
I mean,
but-
everyone enjoys
Yeah.
the benefits of it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't sacrifice the string stability for snapback. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So you don't want to add a huge percentage of silicone into a string, in my view, with all due respect to whoever's doing that. But you don't want to add a huge amount of silicone into a string that's going to allow the string to not notch, but it's sacrificing a lot too. So it's a fine balance.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
and then the additives that you develop, that we develop ourselves. It's not like we just pay for them. Like we develop, and they're like our biggest competitive advantage. They're like our biggest secrets, right? Those are all conducive into winning the U.S. Open. That's what we want. Or Wimbledon, maybe in
we've
2
got the
matches from
goal
now.
of winning a U.S. Open. I love that. Kind of along the same lines, someone was asking what strings in your lineup can aid with a natural gut cross. Looking to experiment with VS Gut and Tour Sniper, and I want to hear from Grapplesnake what they've done to expand the possibility of that string's potential.
I love that question because just to continue a little bit with our types of or classes or lineages of strings, we kind of went over the power comfort, the control, stability, low powered. Then we have 2 more, and one of them being spin. Some of them are hugely spin oriented, aggressively shaped. They're square. Some of our square strings, such as the Game Changer and the new Aspera Triplum, that profile is not for everyone. You know, someone playing with an Eastern grip, little older school, that's looking to flatten out the shots more often than not. Like they probably shouldn't be playing with a square, aggressively shaped string. But the Aspera Triplum, by the way, has been our most complicated string to make because it's not only square, but it also has a surface. We kind of created this concept of a string having a surface. That by that I not mean rough indentations. I mean surface, like gritty surface, like a 500 grit sandpaper style. But Aspera Triplum it's square, gritty, has a surface, and it's also rough. It has indentations. So it's a triple approach that's been also soft for a square poly, but that's our
It's like
spin.
that'd be like a cool T-shirt. Square,
Right.
gritty, rough. Yeah.
and it's comfortable. But anyway, that's the spin line of strings. And then we have our more like experimental line of strings. One of them is to answer that question, is a string that's specifically made to function as a polycross with a multi-filament or natural gut in the mains.
Nice.
And for that, we made it slippery. And we don't use silicone. We made it slippery. And we gave it a unique shape, which is rounded rectangular. So if you imagine it's like your phone, it has a nice flat area of 40 to 45% of that area is the top flat portion of it and the bottom flat portion of it. And then the rest is just a rounded size.
It's almost like
So-
a pill shape.
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
spread
a little
out.
bit, but
Yeah.
not oval.
Not oval, yeah.
It's not oval. And when you pull it with your electronic tension head, it tends to self-adjust into the flatter, larger area of the string sitting against the mains.
Okay.
So if you think about it, even a round string, which had till now been the gold standard for a cross geometry with multi or natural gut mains to avoid excessive notching, even a round surface sits against the mains only about 30% of its surface area, just the bottom part of that circle, right? Whereas with our irukanji string, that's what it's called, irukanji, which is, by the way, the scientific name of a jellyfish. With irukanji, about 40% of the string, if not a little more, sits against the mains. And at the same time, it's very slippery. So it enhances the snapback. So a lot of the polyester strings, they don't aggressively shaped poly doesn't make any sense in the cross sometimes because that aggressive edge sits vertically at that point, right?
Yeah.
And it damages the mains.
Yeah.
So you need to rely on snapback to allow that for that cross to enhance and work in synchrony with the mains, if those mains are gut or multi. So you want to make the string elevate the main.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point in a polycross. And with Irukanji, we allowed it to not hurt the mains. It slides nicely, and it has a small percentage of aluminum, a lot smaller than Tour Sniper.
Mm-hmm.
But we made the string. It's purposely built to work in synchrony with multi or natural gut mains. So in terms of feel, they work well together. Some people still use Irukanji as a cross in a dual poly setup, which is fine. Which just wasn't made for that. It was made like in our brains. It was the feel component of it was made to work in synchrony with natural gut or multi main. So that's my number one advice for people working with mains that are either natural gut or multi. If you have a poly main and you're looking for another poly for a dual poly cross, then my follow-up question would be like, so what are you trying to change? Like, are you trying to add power, remove power? What are you trying to do to change those mains? And typically people are trying to soften up the string bed because they're going with a really solid low power main,
Right.
but they're like, I just want a little more power
Yeah.
or something. And then maybe alpha or Turmeco. Turmeco because it's round and it's very elastic. But out of this lineup here, alpha is fantastic. It's a fantastic polycross.
I have it in a setup right now, actually, in another one of these rackets with Sniper in the mains, Alpha in the crosses, and then I have another one actually with Sniper and M8. Both hit super well.
So that's interesting. Sniper main, M8 cross, or Sniper or M8 main, Sniper cross. They're both excellent setups. A lot of people prefer the M8 in the cross because it's a little more slippery. But at the same time, M8 is such a high performer that you kind of want it in the mains at times, and it doesn't hurt to put the Sniper in the cross. One more thing, like in our experimental quote line of strings, we're trying to break another boundary there of introducing new metals into strings, and we introduce them at really high percentages. And there are two of them in one model that we have. It's called Paradox Pro. It's paradoxical because it shouldn't do what it does, and it doesn't require any break-in, and it doesn't go dead. It just breaks like M8, but more dramatic of a.
Will it break for even someone like me who hasn't broken a string in like 10 years?
Well, it will break. It will break. At the same time, you shouldn't be playing with a dead string for too long. But
No. I cut them out. But I was just talking to someone the other day, and I was like, I couldn't tell you the last time I broke strings. I don't hit it with a lot of spin.
The string suffers not only from the racket head speed leading up to spin, but it also suffers from the impact.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you use thicker gauges in general?
I like a 16 gauge. Yeah, and I hit pretty flat, so I don't generate a lot of spin on my own.
I still don't think people understand like how we test stuff. Like we don't play with the same racket very often.
That's
like
what I was going to
periods of
say that.
time.
Like you're gonna we all have seen the videos of you crushing that ball down there, but then you have to move on to a different one.
Well,
right?
and then like I'll get a restring.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
but a lot
so
of
many different rackets.
But
so
I'm
many
like,
different
wait, I want to
strings.
try just to break strings. I kind of miss the sensation.
I think the Paradox Pro is a different class.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be. It introduces some of the advancements that we've created, and again, everything born from the fact that we need to change something here. We need to improve. We're thinking 10 years ahead, hopefully, and the introduction of these two metals make the string play very different, and it's of course like nothing out there. And if I had to like define it a little bit, it would be almost like that original Luxilon from back in the day, with a very like pure polyester, because it has the polyester. It has a very pure polyester feel, but without all those co-poly additives, just with the metals, added metals that fulfill those roles, and just a tiny bit of additive. So it feels like an old school vintage poly with a weird layer on top of something that, number one, enhances spin because it has a very gritty surface. That's the first string that we introduced that has. If you can run your fingernails through it, and it feels like, and so surface, and the other metal just add in that concept of the string not requiring much of a break in, not really going dead, and adding that softness to it, so it doesn't really play stiff like the old vintage poly. So it's almost like a poly with the additives reimagined into two novel metals that we're using. So at that point, the metals are used in such large quantities that I don't know if it can be considered a poly anymore. So and I think in the future, some of those benchmarks, some of those they're going to become standard. Like a tennis player 10 years from now is not going to accept a string going dead on him. It's only going to accept the string playing 100% of the time the way it should until it breaks. So that's that's our vision.
There's a lot of metal in there, man.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like lead tape, man. You need like toxic.
Right? Yeah, no, don't even know. I was thinking that too.
It doesn't feel harsh.
Yeah.
It's not aluminum. So if you think metals, maybe you're tying that in your mind with aluminum that feels harsh. This is not like that. It's interesting. It's experimental. It's very, very, very interesting string.
Well, somehow it's been about an hour. So time has flown by. I'm going to wrap it with one last question. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to all of them, although I think you answered a lot of the questions that were in here. And, maybe there's an opportunity for a part 2 when we have something new coming out. The question is, are you guys planning to expand into other categories? So overgrips, dampeners, or rackets?
No,
Nope.
we make strings.
I
mean,
we love that. I love that.
We're purpose built to make strings and the best strings
Yeah.
in the world, and that's
Easy. Stick to what you know, and you guys are doing an amazing job. This was really insightful. I learned so much, so thank you for joining us. And of course, you can get Grapplesnake at Tennis Warehouse.
I want to say something about that.
Please.
Thank you for having me here. Like being in San Luis Obispo, beautiful San Luis Obispo, I love it. And we are tennis players first, enthusiasts first. We love the sport, passion, and then way down there is the business portion of it. And what I enjoy the most with this partnership is that you, as an organization, I know that you will do a great job in spreading our philosophy, and our philosophy being only focused on the best and have a direct line of communication with your customers, with the players. Like they can call me and ask me questions. Something I never had the luxury of doing myself, and answering questions on the forum. You guys are already answering questions on the forum, and I know that the customer service staff here, they're going to learn about the strings, and they're going to convey our ethos in that regard. And that is what's most prideful for me about this partnership, because we have other distributors, and I have brick and mortar stores. Sometimes the owner doesn't play tennis, and the conversation is 100% business. And that's fine. In this case, with Tennis Warehouse, the conversation has been 90% tennis. And
That's what we
like
like
talk
to talk
about
about.
which rackets we're using.
Yeah.
And then with Oak here, who has been a huge facilitator for us to get through, because not everyone can just get into Tennis Warehouse. Only 2 manufacturers in the last 7+ years. I mean, that's a testament to. I'm proud of that. But at the same time, he made it happen.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, and I know that the conversation, and every time I talk to him, we talk about tennis. And then if I need to figure out some sort of like barcode or fulfillment process like that, I talk to someone else about it, and that only takes a couple of minutes. It's a tennis-centered, focused conversation, not only with Oak, but with everyone at Tennis Warehouse, and including you guys. I appreciate you having me here, and I hope that we can stay in touch and talk about tennis, like not necessarily too much about how the sales are going. Doesn't matter.
Absolutely. That's I think that's what we lead with also.
Awesome.
So it's a great partnership. We
Thank you.
appreciate you so
Hey.
much for being here.
Thanks for coming here,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
And
Of course.
happy heading.
Yeah, indeed.
Yay.